I think that CAAT has been influential in several ways. First, CAAT maintains the consistent and strong drumbeat around alternatives so that our federal agencies and our international agencies really keep alternatives up front when they think about toxicity testing and development. Second, through its grants program, CAAT has encouraged the development of alternative science. And this is very important because what you do is you're creating a generation of scientists who are familiar with alternatives and think about how alternatives can be used in their daily laboratory work. Those are two important things that I think CAAT has done. The third thing that CAAT has done is it's worked directly with different groups to make sure that these groups hear each other and that their messages about alternatives are understood across a broad spectrum.
I think in this day and age when the funding is so tight and when people fund things often because they know the answer, it's important, it is vitally important for research to go forward to have support by organizations who, although they have a mission, support good science and wherever that good science takes them. And so it is clear that we are trying to develop alternatives to the use of animals, but that's very, very broad, and there's plenty of space in that mission for good science and for all sorts of good science, which we can't predict, which is the whole notion of basic science. And that's why organizations like CAAT, which brings people together, gives them a chance to talk the science, gives them a chance to have some money to actually test some of their ideas, and then gives them a forum to disseminate those ideas, I think is what makes CAAT so important to us.
From the very beginning, I guess I was fortunate and had many good teachers and learned that there are different stakeholders in this field with very different needs. And what was important is that we would bring all of those stakeholders together in a transparent, open meeting. So the first board of CAAT contained people from industry, from academic communities, from the government, and from stakeholder groups. And at that point in time, the only real stakeholder group was the animal activist community. What we learned is that people ask different questions, have somewhat but not necessarily divergent expectance of outcome. They all want the same thing, but they want to get there somewhat differently. And then the concept was that some wanted to get there thinking we could get the low-hanging fruit and we'd have the answers. It was straightforward, it's simple. Unfortunately, science does not go that way. It's much more complex. So we learned that by having these different groups together, they ask questions differently, and routinely within almost every meeting, one of the groups would ask a question and somebody from a different segment would say, "That's a great question. I would have never asked it." And it's that kind of experience that we've had. So from our first board having this diversity to the last program that we just ran on developmental neurotoxicity, the steering committee was made up of all of those stakeholders, government, industry, academics, and the activist communities. But this time the activist communities now have expanded to the animal people, to people interested in children's health, people interested in the environment. And the three stakeholders have somewhat different interests. So it's how do you bring them all together to come up with a solution to a problem that everybody wants to solve.